Well, good afternoon to you, and this is our introduction to the world at large for both of us in terms of
Yeah.
doing video content.
Okay.
So, for myself, for those who aren't already familiar with me, my name is Eric. I run the website Waters of Memory, and I provide healing services as well as attunements, and I will be offering coaching. And Candy, I know that you do magic, you do healing work and attunements.
hmm
Is there anything that you want to add to that in terms of like what's in your wheelhouse?
I like you said, I do healing. I do ritual work, um, attunements. I'm pretty new to this, the whole like healing end of it, like actually having clients and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm just still getting a feel for it, seeing what I want to put out there. Um, so yeah, probably some group rituals, stuff like that, just the basic stuff, and then I'll just grow from there and see what the audience wants or clients want from me.
Yeah, I think that's really the best approach to take because I know I've sat around and tried to brainstorm different things, and I have tried to implement some of that, but you really have to work with your audience and see where they're at. Like there's always this disconnect between here's what I like to do, here's what I can do, and here's what people want.
Yeah,
And you got to find where you meet in the middle.
yeah. I tend to overthink things and I just start spinning and spinning, and I just have to like let it go and be like,
Yeah.
no, just it'll you're ready to do it, it'll come. That type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, like it hits a point where it's like, okay. I've done enough thinking. I've taken enough notes. I have a military treatise here. I need to burn this thing and start back
Seriously,
at zero.
I have like little papers all over the place, like things written down, like, and I've gotten to the point where I just start throwing them away. I'm like, it'll
Yeah.
come back to me when I need it.
There are times because Lucifer is my patron, there are times where I will get a mental image of him standing by like this wall where I've got all these notes up, just staring at me, flipping the wall down and being
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, no, it's, go back to basics.
yeah. Abaddon is always over my shoulder. Like, even I think he's here now.
Oh,
I can just feel
absolutely.
his presence. Like, he's just like looking over my shoulder, like he's like, back off, like, let me
Mhm.
breathe. And he does that to me a lot. Like, breathe down my neck. I'm like, okay, okay, I hear you. I'll do it. I swear
Mhm.
tomorrow.
Lucifer is interesting because with me, he's taken kind of a more hands-off approach most of the time. Um, he can be as subtle as a whisper or as flamboyant as a pride parade, and I never know which one I'm gonna get.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I just recently had a reading done, just to clarify some stuff, just to like see if I was thinking the right thing with someone, and I was I was really surprised that I was like spot on
Hmm.
about who was around me, and who was my spirit team and everything. So it was just like, oh, I knew that. So everything like it's more clear to me who's here.
Right.
I'm not like second guessing myself, which I tend to do anyway.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
think that's part of the course for anybody who's empathic and self-aware, which it's one hell of a catch-22 because the people who really need to be questioning themselves almost never do. But
true. Yeah.
I'm the kind of person I've gone through periods of time where it's like I can get the most blatant signs imaginable that I am exactly right in what I'm thinking, and I'm still like,
Oh yeah.
I've got room to doubt.
hmm But you're still like, okay, give me something like, and it's like right in front of your face, but you still
Hmm.
want like, no, I need something more solid. Like, you're not going to get much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, again, Lucifer and other spirits I work with, it hits a point where it's like, put the fucking tarot cards down. They're not going to give you a different answer. Just go.
Oh, I yeah, tarot drives me insane. Like, I just like, no, no, I want a clearer answer. I do. I'm like, fine, just I'm not putting no, just go away.
Hmm.
Yeah, same thing.
I've noticed that when I make extensive use of the cards, they start getting sarcastic with me after a
So,
while.
yeah, they do. They really, really do. And I can feel the sarcasm. Like, I'm like,
Hmm.
okay. Or they'll just give you random they'll just like give me just answers that don't make any sense at all.
Yes.
Like they're just telling me to stop.
It also depends on the beings that you work with. Like this is off topic and out of left field, but I know one time when I had Arachne present, when I was doing different readings with tarot cards, like I just got a whole suite of swords cards, and in my head I'm like, I think she likes me, and then I put them back together and I put them back in the drawer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's funny.
So I know with the healing stuff, Abaddon's been working with you on that. I know that he helped you put together your first attunement.
Yeah, Abaddon. I'm just now finding this out, but like just not now, but just about Abaddon. So he's been with me for a couple of lifetimes now,
Hmm.
quite a few lifetimes. But I didn't know. My oldest daughter introduced me to Abaddon. Um, so I was about, I don't know, was it 3 years ago? About 3 years ago, I had this. I started like I can see, like when I'm just standing, like just sitting here talking to you, even I can see things in the astral. Like
Hmm.
I can see it going on, and so I started I started seeing like all these people coming to me. Some of them were spirits, some of them were deities, but they were just like overwhelming me. And I
Hmm.
had to learn how to, like, literally I put like a ticket machine up there. And I'm like, everybody get behind the ticket machine, ticket number. Like if you want something from me, just wait your turn. And they listened and they backed up, and it was kind of funny. And so all of a sudden this person or this entity showed up, and he wouldn't show his face, and he wore white, like a white hoodie, and his hands were like in his, like this in his pocket, and he wouldn't look up, and he was there, and he was driving me crazy. He was like right here, like almost where I couldn't see beyond him,
Hmm.
and he wouldn't tell me who he was. He wouldn't move. He wouldn't talk, and I'm like, who the hell are you? And he wouldn't even look at me. So I tell my daughter a lot of stuff. So I told her about him, and she looked at me. She goes, "Does he have red eyes?" And I'm like, he won't look at me. So finally he looked at, finally I said, look at me. And he looked at me, and he had these bright red eyes. And I looked at my daughter. I'm like, yeah. She goes, oh, that's Abaddon. I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, he's been with me since I was 13. And she's like 30 now.
Hmm.
I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah. So anyway, that was how and then I started interacting with him more. And he was always around, always. And even that was about 3 years ago. And I still was kind of like, what do you want? Like I was kind of sure I was a healer, but I hadn't like played with it yet.
Right.
So he just has guided me here. Like he's literally like, I've just followed his lead basically,
Hmm.
and he's got me to where I am. And I like I started doing my own, like putting together my own healings, but they weren't attunements. They were just healings, like
Right.
like just healing type stuff. And I put together this big healing, and that was when I spoke with you about it. And you
Hmm.
had mentioned, oh, you really need to turn into an attunement. And so I really didn't know how to do that, but I was sitting in my car one day, like I told you, and I was like, hey, let's do this. Like you're here, like how do
Hmm.
I do this? And he just looked at me, and he was like, it's done.
Yeah.
It's done. And I'm like, what? And he's like, it's done. And so that's when that was my first attunement that I was ever that he helped me put together.
Right. Yeah, and I remember back then saying to you that I had the sense you would be extremely gifted with that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's like it's interesting because I um since then I've had, like, well, I've gotten more attunements from you and other people, but also like my own. And it's just, it still floors me when I have somebody in front of me and I'm doing these, the healing on them, and they actually feel it. Like I
Hmm.
can see them, like sometimes they'll like start leaning to the left, and they're like, I'm not doing this. Why is my body moving this way?
Yes.
I'm like, because something's going on, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you've had it happen too, where even someone who isn't aware or normally tapped into these things, sometimes you'll have your hands on them and you'll feel the current of energy moving through them,
Oh
and
yeah,
you will feel the energy when it stops,
I
and
do that. Yes.
they will feel it when it stops too,
Yeah.
and they'll suddenly become aware because the reality is that people aren't ever fully cut off of their awareness of this. It's just, does the conscious mind
Hmm.
register it? And if the
Right.
conscious mind registers it, will it take it as it is or try to make up some rational explanation for what's actually going on?
Hmm.
And what they'll pick up on when you're doing an attunement for them, when you're doing a healing for them, is like you were talking about, how they're noticing their body leans
Hmm.
and how somehow that will play into the healing that's taking place. And neither you nor the person can explain why it's important, but it is important.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the person I was doing this specific healing on, um, she's young, um, and she's had a lot of health issues and going through it. And her doctor actually told her, you should probably see like an energy healer.
Hmm.
So
Oh, that's
when I
awesome.
heard that, I'm like, get your butt over here. I'm like, come here, let's do this. So she sat here in this room with me, and I did that. I was like pulling up the energy, and my hands literally stopped,
Hmm.
and I'm like, right here, and she goes, that's exactly where it is. And so we pushed it all out, and she hasn't had any pain since.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of the earliest sessions that I did when I started doing this for hire. Because okay, my background is I started as a magician and I had no interest in energy healing.
Hmm.
Um, Being frank about it, I thought that things like Reiki were bullpucky because of the New Age crowd.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything that the New Age crowd is into, I have had a very strong aversion toward. But because of people like Sarah Petrucelli, I started taking to it.
Hmm.
Basically seeing people who were left-hand path, who were practicing energy healers. Okay, so it's not all frou-frou love and light. There's something to it.
Hmm.
And that's when I started getting pulled in that direction. And I know Lucifer had a very strong hand in it. Like,
Hmm.
it's a case where, like you, I can tell you that Lucifer's been with me over many lifetimes.
Yeah.
Like, we have a very close relationship. We're very familiar with each other. Um, and I can also say that there are many, many, many instances where I can't consciously point to anything he did or influenced, but I know he had a hand in it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then getting pushed into the direction of energy healing, working with him in a lot of the energy healing sessions I've done. Like, people underestimate what Lucifer's good at. Like, he's good at pretty much everything. He's
Well,
great.
yeah.
Like, he's great for bringing in for healing sessions. He's great for bringing in for illuminating problems, bringing self-awareness.
Hmm.
And so shortly after getting nudged into this direction of working as an energy healer, I had a client who, I didn't know this going into the session. This was something I did remotely. I was drawn to like the hips area, and I told
Okay.
her this. It felt like a lot of energy had purged around there, and she told me that she was actually going in for surgery for a lot of pain surrounding the reproductive organs,
Hmm.
and that the pain had greatly diminished following the session.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what happened with this person. She's very young, her life ahead of her, and she's got like all that stuff down there, the
Hmm.
reproductive stuff, everything, and she woke up in pain. She was always in pain. And when we did that, I like to remind everybody, like when I do a healing on them, like I am not the energy, I just direct the energy.
Yes.
Like the energy will decide what it's going to heal and what it want, what I mean, like
Yeah.
what it needs to heal. So I can't guarantee that it's going to like do what you want it to do, but
Yes.
it will do what it needs to do.
Exactly. Because the
So,
energy itself, whether you're calling in a spirit to help or not, the energy is sentient and it knows what it needs to do. Your field knows what needs to be done.
mhm.
And I know whether or not I consciously presence the person's higher self or daemon, whatever you want to call it. I
Yeah.
know that that's going to be where the buck stops. I
Mhm.
intend for the buck to stop there because the thing for me, and I've only come to realize this after practicing energy work myself. Uh, the thing that drove me away from a lot of the new age Reiki practitioners was their ego.
Yes.
Their ego was very prominent, And the more they proclaimed they were enlightened, the more they talked about their angels and all of this, the more ego was involved. And they would, whether they used the right language or not, they would act like they were the ones responsible for the healing.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
See, when I first started doing the healing, like when TikTok with me, when the whole COVID thing, that was a big TikTok era.
right.
There's so many like light workers on
Oh
there, and
God.
they like do their Reiki and they do their light language, and that was when I was kind of like getting familiar with that, and I was just like, well, no, that's not me. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
light language. I'm not a light person. Like, I tried the light. I tried the light. I
Yeah.
tried
The
following the
light
light.
is
It
mostly
was,
parasites.
yeah, it was just not. I just couldn't. Like, I finally was like, no, 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 no.
Yep.
So that turned me off the Reiki thing. Like, you can't just no.
Hmm.
So you had a good point when I think we were talking one day, and you said um, it's energy because
Right.
Reiki to me is just kind of like it. Just for me in my head, it's just that light language, and like, why do you have to know
Yeah.
light language? That's what they make it sound like. You have to know the light language. You have to know this, and you have to know that. You don't know you can't not doing Reiki unless you're doing light language,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing.
Hmm. And that shows how ignorant a lot of them are of
Mm-hmm.
Reiki and the origins of Reiki. Like I'm not going to go into all of that because it's its own rabbit hole. And
Yeah,
I need to do more research on that myself.
yeah,
But I think that there's merit to the idea that the original Reiki practitioners from over in Japan were doing something more akin to Solomonic magic on the
mm-hmm.
astral plane as opposed to all of this light-based stuff. Because what it comes down to for me is I'm not opposed to light, I'm not opposed to darkness. We're all a mix of both. And
Exactly.
but genuine light, uh, there's a difference between like okay, if you have two substances that provide you with energy, there's a difference between say a good nutritious meal that energizes you and cocaine. And most of like these light workers and new age practitioners, they're snorting spiritual cocaine and they're
Yeah.
being preyed upon by light entities and they don't understand that that feeling of bliss that they get is actually their nervous system being put into a heightened state.
Yes.
They're in a kind of mania and they're not grounded. And where
That's exactly it. When I was doing it, when I was getting, because I went through this whole thing, like I went from, being a not willing, born again Christian,
yep.
like, young, my mom, like, baptized me and but anyway, yeah. And then all the years, and just thought, all that bad stuff. Anyway. And then I finally got into like Buddhism was my next little step. And then I got into the light stuff. And then I got so, I was so like into the light stuff that I forgot to pay my bills.
Hmm.
Like I just spaced out. Like I was up in the clouds. I wasn't
Yep.
doing like I'm like, this is not good. Like this is
No.
so not good. So I just think the dark and the light, you can't have one without the other.
No, you can't.
So you can't say I'm a light worker, I only work with the light. You don't. Like you can't. It just doesn't work out that way.
Hmm.
But, for
Any
me.
being that any being that appears to be purely light based, like between the two, I would say that it's possible for a being to be almost pure darkness. It is impossible for a being to be pure light or almost pure light. The
Hmm.
darkness gives the light a matrix to manifest on. So if you're dealing with something that's purely light based, what you're dealing with is either a trickster spirit or you're dealing with a thought form. So,
Hmm.
like a lot of these people who are working with Archangel Michael, I always wonder which Archangel Michael, because it's like an insane asylum full of Napoleons on the astral realm.
Yeah.
When we're talking about Michael, like I've worked with Archangel Michael, and Archangel Michael has a very strong and pronounced underworld aspect. And my personal gnosis of him, I don't know if this is backed up by any literature, but my personal gnosis of him is that he has a lot of authority within the Jinnic realms. Like he
Okay.
has a Jinnic aspect.
Hmm.
And so he's not all love and light and
No,
kindness.
for me, I think the archangels are kind of more scary than the older gods I work with.
They are.
I mean, they scare me more than they like. No, it just.
They have an entirely different relationship with the material plane than a lot of the
Hmm.
darker gods do.
Hmm.
And it's why you actually have to be a lot more cautious working with archangels. Like Archangel Michael is great. I'd recommend him to anybody, like the actual
Right.
Archangel Michael. But with the others, you have to be more cautious with a lot of them than you do the goetic beings, because again, they're
Hmm.
they're hostile toward the kind of
Hmm.
embodied existence that we have.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
They'll fuck somebody up faster than a lot of the goetic beings will.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they are. I mean, I felt their presence a lot. I think, like when back then I was, I was started to see things that would come into my, like, I'd close my eyes or whatever, and I'd see this like bright light. It would just like start coming, 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 and then it just like stop, and it'd be like a face or something.
Hmm.
And I was pretty sure that was one of either Michael or Raphael, but it was but yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't bad, just a very heavy presence. And they
Hmm.
would just like sit there and just kind of like not say anything, but just kind of look back at me.
Hmm.
Or it was like one big eye, just one eye, huge eye, just taking up my whole space, just staring at me. And I'm
Yeah,
like, can I help you?
that's another thing with the archangels. They're a lot more prone to presenting in ways that are absolutely terrifying.
I know. I'm like, can you back up a little bit? Just a little.
Because I know with most demonic entities or old gods, they typically present to me in a humanoid form because they know
They
that's what
don't
I'm
like
going to.
me.
They do that because they know that's what I'm going to be most comfortable with, and it's the way that it's easiest for me to perceive them. But the archangels are a lot more prone to just not caring.
This is true. When I first met Belial, this was like about 4 years ago, 3 years, 4 years ago. I was
Now
I
talk about
felt I
not giving
wasn't
a
like
fuck.
dreaming, but I was just about to, like, I just had just closed my eyes, and all of a sudden, like hundreds and hundreds of demonic faces like kept just like
Hmm.
rushing at me, and I was like, I knew not to be afraid. I'm like, okay, I'm not
Right.
afraid. I'm safe. Like, what do you want? Like, who are you? And they just like, just coming at me, coming at me, and all of a sudden, I'm like, who are you? And all of a sudden, in my head, screamed, Belial! And I woke up. I'm like, I just looked around. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, Belial is the master of subtlety.
Yeah, yes, yeah, very much so. Yeah. He
Uh,
actually, when he wants me to do something, he makes me physically, like, it will hurt if I don't do it. Like,
right.
I'll start feeling like this pressure in my body. And then
Hmm.
he's like, do it now. And I literally have to
Yeah.
get up and do it.
I remember when I still worked retail, there was I went through a period where I would just chant the demonic ends in my head
Okay.
whenever I didn't have to be like processing another thought or interacting with a customer.
Yeah.
So there was one time where I was doing that with Belial's N, and my supervisor came up to me and told me to go do something I really didn't want to do. And so when my supervisor walked away, this was pretty much unconscious. Like I was aware of what I was doing, but I wasn't conscious enough to realize, hey, I shouldn't do this. Like it's
Mhm.
like a force pulled me up front toward the time clock. And
Oh my God.
I was just about to walk off the job before I'm like, no, Belial, I can't do that today.
Yeah. 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 That's how he is. He's just like, so I know, like, I'm starting to like recognize it now. It's like, no, I can't do that.
Hmm.
No.
He wants you to push back. Like he wants you to develop your own strength
Yeah,
of
I think
will.
so. Yeah.
And he'll point out, it's like, you want to walk off this job. Why are you still here? Like, I
Right.
will walk off the job for you if you don't.
Right.
And basically, there's an understanding. It's like, okay, I'm not going to pressure you to walk off the job if you aren't going to today, but do something about this. Um, my very first experience with him was shortly after I started to consciously work with Lucifer. So the way that I got initiated into magic was by Lucifer directly. And it was shortly after that I felt like I was under heavy psychic attack. And at that moment in time, I thought, oh, this must be coming from the Abrahamic deity. And so I go looking around for, what can I do for protection? And Belial's end starts popping up in my YouTube suggestions. So
Mm.
it's like, obviously, I'm getting pulled toward Belial. I do a little bit of research on him. At this point, I have no idea how close they are. Now I understand if one's present, the other one is either present or is fully aware of what I'm doing with the other one.
Yeah.
Um, and so I do a little bit of research on Belial and I see, okay, he's the protector of the witch blood. He's the perfect one to go to. I chant his end. I ask for protection. Like I can tell immediately he doesn't fuck around. Like my nervous system is feeling electricity going through it. Like my
Mm-hmm.
body is, tremoring a bit. And then it's like, okay, I feel a lot better. And then I started to feel a lot worse. And it got to a point where I'm sitting in my car and I'm screaming at things that aren't there. And all of a sudden it clicks in my head, you guys are fucking with me, aren't you? And
They
then
do.
and then I just heard laughter.
Oh,
And
yes.
and I realized at that moment, okay, the point of this was my own mind was defeating me in the absence of any threat.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I say I have all three. I have Abaddon, Lucifer, and Belial like to gang up on me.
Hmm.
And when they all three get together, they screw with me, and then I can literally see them in the astral, and they're all
Hmm.
cracking up laughing. They just think it's a whole, like so funny that they're messing with me.
Hmm.
So yeah, I get
Yeah.
that totally.
And like our higher selves are right on board with it. Like I don't know
Oh
about your
yeah, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I don't know about your higher self, but my higher self is just downright sarcastic with me. Um,
Oh, absolutely. That it mirrors my attitude
yep.
like completely.
I've been told by spirits known for their harshness when I'm working with them and I'm asking, "Hey, why aren't you being harsher with me?" They tell me straight up, "There's nothing I can do to you that your higher self hasn't done already."
Hmm. And sometimes I feel like I'm being disrespectful to them, but then I'm thinking, I don't think so because I don't feel like they're angry with me. But that's the point. I
Hmm.
think they want us to like stand up for ourselves and
Yep.
not be weak and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Well, the Abrahamic conditioning runs very deep in this society. To the
Oh, it's
y-
still in me. Like I still, no
yeah.
matter how many times I debaptize myself,
Yep.
it's still in there.
We are taught to prostrate ourselves toward our superiors, and these
Hmm.
spirits don't want any of that. It's to the point where even a lot of pagans who don't want anything to do with Christianity still try to run churches. You
Hmm.
don't understand the ancient pagan faith at all if you're trying to run a church. And so I know that one of the things that they have been working with me over the entirety of my practice is getting me to a point where I'm not prostrating myself before them.
Yeah, and that's too. Like my family is not exactly on the same path I am, especially my kids.
Hmm.
But like my youngest daughter, she's 22, and she always has questions and stuff. But it's like she's like, why? What you're worshiping these demons and these, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just set you straight. I'm like, I don't worship
Hmm.
anybody. I go, they don't want us to worship them. They don't want us
Right.
to fall on our knees and you know like that. They just want to be remembered,
Hmm.
respected, and they want to work with us
Yes,
in our lives. That's all they want. And
exactly. Yeah, the,
yeah, so it's
the
just
the only extent to which the word worship would even apply, it would be a case of you're not prostrating yourself. You are seeing
yeah,
yourself as an equal. It would be worship in the sense that you would worship a lover, where you're not
right,
making them better than you, you're not putting them on a
right,
pedestal, but it's a mutual adoration.
exactly. Yeah. So I just have to like repeat, and even my husband's kind of like gone like from one extreme, like he's just not against it, but neither one of us are really like religious, so to speak, but we're just like
Hmm.
grew up in that programming.
Right.
So he's come a long way though since I've been telling because he'll ask questions and he's come a really long way. So he's but he's still the same way. And when I bring up something, he's like, "Why is there just so much to this?"
Hmm.
He's like, "Every time I talk to you, you have something new to talk about." And he's like, "It's just there's so much."
Yeah.
Because I was talking about the black flame meditation and how we all have the black
Hmm.
flame and how some people choose not to ignore it, others ignite it. And he's like, "What?" I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I mean, there's a reason that entire orders have been established around this, and how
Yeah,
you could study this stuff for your entire lifetime and only
seriously.
scratch the surface.
Yep. And that's what I do. I feel myself being pulled this like I'll be reading a book and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting, and I'll run over here and get
Hmm.
another book about that, and then I end up having like 100 books open. And
Yep.
then I have to like pull back and be like, pull your energy back in and refocus.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Because the juxtaposition to that is that this is very simple at the end of the day. is very straightforward to actually practice and walk the path. There's a lot to learn, there's a lot to study, there's
Mm-hmm.
unending layers to it, but at the end of the day, it always comes back to you go within, you center yourself, and you live your true will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. I always like I start like, oh, I got to do this deity, or and then I got to have this deity, and I got to have this, like all these altars. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Hmm.
No, you don't. And I have to, like, again, pull back and be like, but then I feel bad because I don't have this deity on my altar, and then I end up
Hmm.
putting like all these things, and I'm like, no, just stop, pull
Yeah.
back. You don't need that.
Yeah,
They're not going to get
it's
mad at you just because there's nothing, not something up there for them.
right.
Just
Yeah, spirits understand when they're not your patron. They
yeah.
understand when they're not your top priority. And I think that there's a tendency in the West, especially, to apply a FOMO slash consumerist mindset to the
Mm-hmm.
practice of witchcraft and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
When that gets away from what all of this is about, it's about forming relationships. And when you form relationships with spirits, knowing what kind of relationships you've formed and holding true to that, because it's kind of like with people. Like, I'm not going to give every person the same treatment that I give to a family member, a
Right.
girlfriend, a friend
Yeah.
I've had since high school. You know,
Right.
most people are just going to be acquaintances, and some people it's going to be purely transactional, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, for sure. Yep. It's like with Hecate. She's one that's also been with me for a very long time. She's the first goddess that I've ever like learned about.
Hmm.
Back when I did the Buddha thing, and then I learned like Diana, and then it just ended up jumping to Hecate, and then for some reason she stuck around, and she's been with me too for a while. But and then I built on that. But it's like always somebody new will pop in, and I feel guilty
Hmm.
for not like. But then I remember I just kind of put it out there, and I feel, and I'm like, hey, well, no one's mad at me
Right.
because I feel everything. Like my
Hmm.
energy is electricity. Like
Right.
there's a joke in the group. I don't know, Shamika.
Hmm.
She is like she did a attunement on me, and I was like, she's like, girl, you have the most electric energy I've ever felt before.
Hmm.
It's this, I have this thing where I put my wards up, and it's like if you try to touch me, you're gonna get shocked,
Hmm.
like that kind of thing in the astral. So, and when I get really, when I pull in the energy, I can, like, I feel like I plugged my finger into a light socket.
Yeah.
Like, I can feel the electricity running through my veins.
Hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I know that it will hit a point where you literally have to be careful when you're touching electronics. Or like
Mm-hmm.
with me, I will open up my own laptops and my own electronic equipment and make modifications or do repairs. And I have to be very careful before going into any of that, because if I'm dealing with something where the slightest bit of static electricity can fry it,
Mm-hmm.
I might not be the best choice to work on it.
Yeah. My phone glitches out all the time for no reason. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like the screen will glitch. And I'm like, is your phone glitching out? They're like, no. Okay, it's just me, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
And
I still to this day, no matter how many times I've do something or see something, I'm still like in awe of it all.
yep. Well, yeah, it's helpful to have a kind of childlike innocence to it,
Yeah.
because I think that if you ever hit a point where it stops putting you into a state of awe, where you stop appreciating it, that's a signal to kind of take a step back,
Yeah.
because
I agree.
it's not a situation where you want to just be in complete shock about anything that occurs, but you don't want to become cynical toward it, because in terms of when you're living your true will, when you're embodying your true will, and when you're in a position where you can be legitimately helpful to people that you are trying to do magic for, healing services for, it's going to be from a place where you are playful, where you are open-minded, where you are grateful.
Hmm.
And if you're starting to become numb to that, well, now it's time to ground and get back to basics.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. And I think that's a problem. That's part of the thing going back to like the light workers and stuff.
Yeah.
They, like you said, their ego. Um, they they just don't think about it anymore because they think it's them. They think it's
Yeah.
they're doing it. Well,
Hmm.
but it's understanding it's not you're not doing you're helping, but you're processing the energy. That's all you are. You're a vessel.
A lot of people take the whole idea of everything is one and then turn that into, well, if everything is one, I'm God. And they mean that literally their human selves is like the ruler of all creation. And
Mm-hmm.
they don't even consciously realize it, but that's the direction that their behavior and their teachings is obviously going.
Mm-hmm.
And you really you can't be of use to anybody if you're falling into the trap of huffing your own farts and thinking it's enlightenment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I first started like my journey in the light, well, I used to listen to this podcast, and when I was first, I thought it was all true because I didn't know any different.
Hmm.
But they were talking about like how um, um, when we would, it was right before when everyone was supposed to like go up into the 5D,
Hmm.
fifth dimension. They were literally saying that if you're fat, you're heavy, and you eat crappy and you eat junk food, that you won't be able to ascend because you're too heavy. You're too heavy. You're not light enough for your body to ascend to the fifth dimension.
I wish that people would say that about the rapture, because I'm just imagining it's like, no, you're too heavy for Jesus to lift. He can't take you. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
how
but
hard you
yeah,
believe.
that's what they were saying. So they're like, oh, and you can't eat animals because animals they have a very low vibration, and so if you eat their meat, it's going to make you have a low vibration, and then therefore you won't ascend. So you have to be
Yeah.
vegetarian
Um,
and vegan in
I
order to
love to tell
ascend.
those people, did you know that vegetables scream?
I'm just and thinking, and then back then I kind of believed it because I didn't know any
Yeah.
different, And so then they were like, but don't worry because they said so everybody else is going to ascend around you that your friends or whoever, but you're going to get left behind. But they're not going to die. But you have to die first, and then you can come back and ascend. But you have to be dead because then you won't weigh anything, and your soul will be free to ascend. I mean, this is what they were saying, and I just was like, and then now after all this time, I'm like, what are these
Well,
people? What is? I don't
yeah.
understand.
I'm thinking back to, hey, in my defense, I was indoctrinated into it, but it reminds me of how I took all the Rapture stuff seriously. I read the Left Behind series.
I mean,
Ugh.
yeah, same, yeah. So it's the
So,
same concept. I'm like, yeah, but that's a good point. Like, yeah, you're not going to be able to go up because Jesus can't lift you up. You're just too fat. Sorry,
yep.
you can't go.
Yeah, sorry,
You can go
Jesus isn't a
down. You can
yeah,
go down
Jesus
because you
Jesus
can
isn't a
sink.
fan of Frito-Lay.
Yeah, so you can sink down into the underworld, but you can't go up.
So this has been a very good talk. I'm looking forward to having more of these in the future.
Yeah, it's fun.
I hope that you have a good rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, you too. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too.
All right, let me know how it turns out.
I will.
And don't eat any meat. No low vibrational animals.
Absolutely not.